The Galactic Council chamber floated in the silent heart of the Andarian Nebula, a massive dome of polished obsidian and living crystal that pulsed faintly with the thoughts of its builders. Inside, the air shimmered with translator fields and scent neutralizers, masking the natural odors of dozens of alien species gathered for the quarterly summit. At the far end of the crescent-shaped table sat the human delegation, small in number, quiet in manner, and easily overlooked. Their leader, Paul Dawson, sat with his hands folded on the smooth surface before him, his dark eyes watching, listening, waiting. Beside him, Lena Brooks adjusted the collar of her gray diplomatic tunic, her fingers brushing the small data pad strapped to her wrist. She didn't speak, but her expression said enough. They were wasting their time. For 3 weeks now, the Council had debated the same issues over and over. Border disputes between the Varelian hegemony and the Cathari Concord, mining rights in the Helios Belt, and the so-called lesser species protocols that dictated how younger civilizations should be guided, monitored, and if necessary, contained. Earth had been granted observer status only 2 years earlier, after humanity's first faster-than-light probe accidentally drifted into a Cathari patrol zone. The incident had caused panic at first, but once the aliens realized humans had no weapons, no fleet, and no idea how to navigate beyond their own solar system, they softened. Earth was invited to the Council as a curiosity, a primitive species with strange biology, odd customs, and an unnerving habit of smiling during tense conversations. Paul had hoped the invitation meant respect. He quickly learned it meant pity. Today's session focused on the frontier colonies near the Scorpius Rift, human settlements established on icy moons and barren asteroids, built with recycled ship parts and stubborn hope. For months, those colonies had reported attacks by raiders flying ships with Varelian markings. Cargo vanished. Communication relays were destroyed. 2 outposts went completely dark. Paul had submitted 3 formal complaints, each backed by sensor logs and eyewitness accounts. Each time, the Council dismissed them. The Varelian hegemony denies all involvement, droned the Xanthari delegate, his voice a series of clicking tones translated into flat, emotionless English. Your evidence is circumstantial. Your colonies exist in unclaimed space. You cannot expect galactic protection when you refuse to join a recognized alliance. Paul leaned forward slightly. We're not asking for protection. We're asking for acknowledgement. If your allies are arming pirates to destabilize neutral zones, that affects everyone. A ripple of low-frequency laughter passed through the chamber. The Cathari representative, a tall being with iridescent skin and 6 slender arms, waved a dismissive hand. Earthlings speak as if they understand strategy. You have 1 planet, no fleet, and your entire military could fit inside a single Varelian cargo bay. Why should we risk war over your tin can outposts? Lena's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent. She knew the rules. Speak only when recognized, never raise your voice, never show anger. Those were the unspoken laws of the Council. Humans had learned them fast. After the session ended, Paul and Lena walked through the winding corridors of the Council spire, their boots clicking softly against the bioluminescent floor tiles. Other delegates passed them without a glance, some out of indifference, others out of habit. To most, humans were background noise, like the hum of life support or the flicker of distant stars. Back in their quarters, a modest suite carved into the asteroid's core, Paul removed his jacket and sat heavily on the edge of the narrow sleeping platform. Lena poured 2 cups of rehydrated coffee from the dispenser and handed one to him. They're never going to listen, she said quietly. No, Paul agreed. They see us as children playing with tools they don't understand. They think we'll keep coming back, begging for scraps of attention. And if we stop? He looked at her, his eyes tired but clear. Then they'll notice. That night, Paul reviewed the latest report from Colony Theta 9. The outpost had been hit again. No deaths this time, but their main reactor was damaged, and their distress beacon had been jammed for 12 hours. The raiders left behind a single message scrawled in human script on the outer hull. Go home. It wasn't just an attack. It was a warning and a test. Someone wanted to see how Earth would respond. Would they cry to the Council again? Would they retreat? Or would they do something unexpected? Paul opened a secure channel on his private terminal. The screen flickered, then displayed a simple prompt. Authorization, Dawson Alpha. Confirm withdrawal protocol? He typed, confirmed. The system replied, initiate horizon departure sequence. All personnel to Shuttle Bay Gamma in 0600 cycles. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel fear. He felt relief. For weeks he had carried the weight of Earth's dignity on his shoulders, trying to prove humanity belonged in this grand galactic theater. But belonging wasn't something you begged for. It was something you claimed. The next morning, Paul and Lena packed their belongings, personal items, encrypted data drives, a small Earth flag folded neatly in Paul's duffel. They didn't say goodbye to anyone. There was no farewell banquet, no final speech. They simply walked to Shuttle Bay Gamma, showed their clearance codes to the automated gate, and boarded the Horizon, a modest diplomatic vessel with dull gray plating and no weapons. As the shuttle detached from the spire and drifted into open space, Paul looked back once at the council chamber, a glittering jewel suspended in the void. Then he turned away. The Horizon's engines hummed to life and the ship turned toward the Sol system. But Paul didn't set a course for Earth. Instead, he entered a series of coordinates deep in the Kuiper Belt, where no alien ship had ever bothered to look. There, hidden behind a veil of ice and silence, humanity had been building something the galaxy didn't know existed, and now, it was time to wake it up. The Horizon slipped through the outer dark like a shadow, its engines running on minimal power, its hull cooled to match the background temperature of deep space. Paul Dawson sat in the pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the star map glowing softly on the console. Lena Brooks stood behind him, arms crossed, watching the silent drift of distant comets and frozen rocks. They had left the Galactic Council spire 3 days ago, and not a single ship had followed them. Not even a scout drone. To the rest of the galaxy, humanity had simply vanished, another minor species that couldn't handle the weight of interstellar politics. Paul didn't mind. Silence was what they needed. The shuttle's destination was Relay Station Kappa, a small outpost buried inside a nameless dwarf planet beyond Neptune's orbit. On official star charts, it didn't exist. To alien sensors, it was just another lump of ice and rock drifting in the endless cold. But inside, behind layers of electromagnetic shielding and quantum-dampened walls, Kappa housed one of Earth's most guarded secrets, a command node linked to every hidden project humanity had built in secret over the last 50 years. As the Horizon approached, a faint pulse of light flickered on the station's surface. 3 short flashes, then 2 long. Human code. Paul tapped a response on his console. The ice wall ahead split open with a slow, silent groan, revealing a docking bay lit by pale blue lamps. Inside, the air was dry and cold. 2 technicians in gray coveralls waited by the airlock. No greetings, no questions. They simply nodded as Paul and Lena stepped out. One handed Paul a sealed data slate. He read it quickly, then passed it to Lena. Everything's ready, he said. She nodded. Then it begins. Deep within the station, past corridors lined with humming servers and cryo-locked vaults, sat the core chamber. It was no larger than a classroom, but its walls were lined with neural interface panels and holographic projectors. At its center stood a single chair, wired to a tangle of cables that vanished into the floor. Paul sat down. Lena connected the neural link to the port behind his ear. A soft chime sounded. Across the Sol system, dormant systems stirred. On Mars, beneath the red dust of the Valles Marineris, massive hangar doors slid open for the first time in decades. Inside, sleek ships, long, narrow, and coated in matte black alloy, powered up their core reactors. Their names were simple: Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, up to Sentinel-12. None had ever left the solar system. None had ever been seen by alien eyes. Near the moon, hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, automated factories whirred to life. Robotic arms assembled sensor arrays, shield generators, and gravity wave emitters with flawless precision. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They didn't fire lasers or missiles. Instead, they bent space, disrupted signals, and rewrote code in enemy systems before the enemy even knew they were under attack. In orbit around Jupiter, a listening post that had pretended to be a weather satellite for 20 years began broadcasting a new signal. Not in radio waves, but in quantum-entangled pulses that could not be intercepted or traced. The message was brief. Protocol Dawn is active. All units stand by. Back at Kappa Station, Paul opened his eyes. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The neural link had drained him, but the job was done. The quiet preparation was over. Now came the watchful phase. Lena handed him a cup of warm broth. How long before they notice? Not long, Paul said. We've activated too many signals at once. Even if they're masked, the energy spikes will show up on long-range scanners. Someone will wonder why a dead zone near Neptune just lit up like a birthday cake. Let them wonder, Lena replied. They've ignored us for years. Let them chase ghosts for a while. Over the next week, the Horizon remained docked at Kappa. Paul and Lena reviewed reports from every corner of human space. Colony Theta 9 had stabilized its reactor with parts shipped from Ganymede. A new mining rig near Saturn had begun extracting rare isotopes needed for the Sentinel's power cores. Earth's governments, once divided by borders and old grudges, had finally unified under a single command structure, not out of fear, but out of necessity. They had seen what the galaxy truly was, not a community of equals, but a hierarchy where strength dictated respect, and humanity had been playing weak for too long. One evening, as Paul watched the slow rotation of Pluto through a viewport, Lena joined him. Do you think they'll come looking for us? She asked. Eventually, he said, but not as diplomats. They'll send scouts first, maybe a patrol. They'll expect to find a broken people hiding in the dark. And when they don't, he smiled faintly, then they'll learn what happens when you mistake silence for surrender. 2 days later, the first alien ship appeared on Kappa's long-range sensors. It was a Varelian scout, small and fast, painted in the hegemony's signature crimson. It had crossed into the outer Sol system under the guise of scientific survey, but its flight path told a different story. It was heading straight for the Kuiper Belt, scanning every object larger than a house. Paul gave the order. Activate Ghost Veil. Instantly, Kappa Station folded itself into invisibility, not by cloaking, but by bending light and distorting sensor returns. To the Varelian ship, the dwarf planet looked empty, inert, dead. The scout circled it twice, then moved on, but Paul knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had noticed Earth's silence, and silence, when it comes from the unexpected, is the loudest sound of all. In the weeks that followed, more ships appeared at the edge of human space. Some were Cathari, some Xanthari, even a lone Thalorian cruiser, old, cautious, watching from afar. None entered the inner system. None challenged Earth directly. They were testing, probing, trying to understand why a species they had dismissed as harmless had gone so utterly quiet. Meanwhile, the Sentinels waited in the dark. Paul and Lena returned to the Horizon. Their mission at Kappa was complete. Now they had to be seen, but not too soon, not too clearly. They set a course for the Oort cloud, where the first real test would take place. Not a battle, not a threat, just a demonstration, because humanity wasn't asking for a seat at the table anymore. They were building their own. The Oort cloud hung at the edge of the solar system like a frozen veil, a sea of icy rocks and silent comets drifting in endless night. Here, far from the warmth of the sun, the Horizon moved slowly, its engines off, its hull dark. Paul Dawson and Lena Brooks watched from the cockpit as distant stars glittered like dust on black glass. They weren't alone. Hidden among the ice, 3 human vessels waited. Sentinel-3, Sentinel-5, and Sentinel-9, each no larger than a freighter but humming with power their alien observers could not yet understand. For weeks, strange reports had trickled into alien networks. A Varelian patrol near the Helios expanse had vanished without a trace. No explosion, no debris, just silence. A Cathari freighter claimed it saw ghost ships near Neptune, vessels that flickered in and out of sensor range, leaving no energy signature. Most dismissed it as sensor glitches or pilot fatigue, but the Varelian hegemony wasn't so sure. They sent a task force, 4 warships, heavily armed, painted in bold crimson stripes to investigate Earth's sudden radio silence. Their orders were simple: find out what the humans were hiding and, if necessary, remind them of their place. The task force crossed the heliopause without warning. Their arrival sent ripples through human monitoring stations. Paul received the alert on his wrist pad. Hostile contact. 4 Varelian cruisers. Vector, Pluto approach. He didn't panic. He didn't even speak. He simply tapped a single command into the Horizon's console. All across the outer system, the Sentinels woke up. The Varelian commander, a veteran named Krell Voss, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Maw. He expected to find a few rusted stations and maybe a human shuttle begging for mercy. Instead, his sensors lit up with anomalies, energy spikes, gravitational distortions. Then, without warning, his ship lurched sideways as if caught in an invisible current. "What is this?" he barked. "Unknown force field," his science officer replied, voice tight. "It's not blocking us, it's bending space around us." Before they could react, 3 sleek black ships appeared out of the void. They made no sound. They carried no visible weapons. But their presence alone froze the Varelian crew in place. These were not the clunky, boxy vessels the Council had catalogued from Earth's early space program. These were smooth, sharp, and utterly alien in design, even though they were human. Paul's voice crackled over every Varelian comm channel, calm and clear, translated instantly by their own systems. "You are trespassing in sovereign space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted." Krell laughed. "Sovereign? You have no fleet, no allies. You are insects with radios." He ordered his ships to fire. The lead Varelian cruiser unleashed a plasma barrage. The beams shot forward, then twisted mid-flight, curling back on themselves like smoke in a storm. The energy vanished into nothing. At the same time, the Iron Maw's engines died. Its shields flickered out. Its weapons locked down, not from damage, from something deeper, something inside their own systems. Lena watched from the horizon as the Varelian ships drifted helplessly. "They tried to fight," she said softly. Paul nodded. "Now they'll learn." Sentinel-5 moved closer. It didn't fire. It didn't threaten. It simply extended a thin beam of pale blue light. Not a weapon, but a data stream. In less than 3 seconds, it bypassed every firewall in the Varelian network, accessed their core memory, and uploaded a single file before retreating. The file contained everything: logs of their pirate raids on human colonies, encrypted orders from Varelian High Command, proof that they had been testing Earth's response for months. It also included a message: "Earth speaks for itself now." Then, as quickly as they appeared, the Sentinels vanished. The gravitational distortions faded. The Varelian ships rebooted, systems coming back online one by one. But something had changed. Their arrogance was gone. Their confidence shattered. Krell stared at the empty space where the human ships had been. He had faced rebels, pirates, even rogue AI fleets, but never this. Never silence that fought back. Never weakness that turned out to be patience. Back at the horizon, Paul exhaled. "They'll tell the Council." "Good," Lena said. "Let them." News of the encounter spread faster than light. Within days, every major species in the galaxy knew. Earth had not retreated. Earth had evolved. The humans hadn't just built ships, they had built something the galaxy had never seen. Technology that didn't destroy but disabled, that didn't conquer but revealed. And worst of all, it had been hidden in plain sight. The Zenthari demanded an emergency session. The Cathari recalled their scouts. Even the Thalorians, ancient and wise, sent quiet inquiries through back channels. What are the humans? But Earth gave no answers, no broadcasts, no press releases. Just silence and the occasional rescue. A stranded merchant vessel near Saturn found its failing life support suddenly stabilized by an unknown drone. A damaged Cathari probe was gently nudged back onto course by a black ship that vanished before thanks could be sent. Humanity wasn't hiding. They were choosing when to be seen. Paul and Lena returned to the inner system, docking the horizon at a hidden station near Titan. There they met with Admiral Cole Briggs, a retired pilot who had spent 20 years designing the Sentinel protocols in secret. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp. "They're scared," Briggs said, sipping black coffee from a tin mug. "Not of our weapons, of our restraint. We could have destroyed those Varelian ships, but we didn't." "That was the point," Paul replied. "We're not here to start a war. We're here to end the idea that we're weak." Briggs nodded. "Then the next move is theirs." And it came sooner than expected. A week later, a Thalorian envoy arrived at the edge of Mars orbit, not with warships, but with a single unarmed vessel. It broadcast a simple request: "We wish to speak." Paul didn't answer right away. He let them wait. For 3 days, the Thalorian ship floated in silence, its lights dim, its engines off. Then, on the 4th morning, Paul sent a reply: "Return in 1 lunar cycle. We will decide if we listen." The envoy left without protest. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. The Varelians accused Earth of deception and aggression. The Cathari warned of a new arms race. But the elder Thalorian delegate, Vorin, stood and spoke in his slow, gravelly voice. You mocked them for being small. You ignored them for being quiet. Now they have shown you that silence can be armor, and patience can be power. You did not lose a friend today. You lost the chance to see them clearly. No one answered him. Out in the dark, the sentinels waited, not for war, not for revenge, but for the moment the galaxy would finally understand. Humanity had never needed permission to belong. They had only needed time. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with a tension it hadn't felt in centuries. Delegates shifted in their seats, their usual calm replaced by nervous energy. Holographic displays flickered with intercepted data, grainy footage of the Varelian task force drifting helplessly near Pluto, sensor logs showing impossible energy patterns, and that single message repeated across a dozen alien networks. Earth speaks for itself now. No one knew what to make of it. The humans had vanished from diplomacy, yet their presence loomed larger than ever. The Zenthari delegation demanded immediate sanctions. They've developed forbidden tech, their lead envoy hissed, mandibles clicking in agitation. Tech that bypasses sovereign systems. That's a breach of the Unity Accords. The Cathari countered with cold logic. We have no proof they built it themselves. Perhaps they stole it from a dead civilization. Or worse, made a pact with the Void cults. Their 6 arms gestured toward the dark corners of the galaxy, where ancient ruins whispered of powers best left buried. But not everyone was ready to condemn. Vorin, the Thalorian elder, sat quietly in his curved seat, his scaled skin dull with age, his eyes half closed as if asleep. When he finally spoke, the chamber fell silent. You speak of theft and pacts because you cannot accept the truth. They did this alone. While we debated borders and tariffs, they worked in silence. While we called them children, they learned to walk among giants. His words hung in the air like smoke. Outside the chamber, panic spread through the council's lower tiers. Intelligence officers scrambled to update threat assessments. Fleet commanders reviewed patrol routes near human space. Merchants rerouted cargo ships fearing ambush or blockade. Yet no human vessel attacked. No colony declared war. Earth remained quiet, but its silence now carried weight. On Mars, in a command center buried beneath red rock, Paul Dawson studied a star map dotted with green markers, human outposts, relay stations, and sentinel positions. Lena Brooks stood beside him, arms crossed, watching a live feed from the edge of the asteroid belt. A Cathari freighter had suffered engine failure. Within minutes, Sentinel-2 appeared, deployed a repair drone, and vanished before the crew could even send a thank you signal. They're watching us, Lena said. Not with fear anymore. With curiosity, Paul nodded. Good, fear makes enemies. Curiosity makes students, he tapped a command. A new directive pulsed through the network. Continue humanitarian ops. No engagement unless fired upon. Let them see what we are. And they did. Over the next month, human ships appeared wherever help was needed, rescuing a stranded Zenthari science team from a collapsing moon, guiding a lost Varelian cargo hauler through a magnetic storm, even sharing clean water filtration schematics with a drought-stricken colony on the fringe of Cathari space. No demands, no conditions. Just aid. The galaxy didn't know how to respond. For generations, power meant dominance, strength meant conquest, but humanity offered strength without threat, power without pride. It confused them, it unsettled them, and slowly it changed them. Back on Earth, cities lit up at night not with fear but with quiet pride. Children drew pictures of the sentinels in school. Engineers worked double shifts in orbital yards, not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to. The world had united not under a flag or a leader, but under a simple idea. We are more than they thought we were. Paul received a private message from Admiral Briggs. The Thalorian envoy is back. They're waiting at the edge of lunar orbit. Same ship, no weapons. They've been there for 2 days. Let them wait one more, Paul said. He wasn't being cruel. He was making a point. Respect wasn't given because you asked. It was earned because you showed you deserved it. Meanwhile, the council debated endlessly. Some pushed for a joint fleet to inspect human space. Others argued for diplomatic outreach. The Varelians, humiliated by their defeat, demanded reparations. But their own allies hesitated. After all, the humans hadn't fired a single shot. They'd only shown what they could do and chose not to do it. Then came the final straw. A deep space observatory run by the Neutral Xylos Consortium detected a massive energy surge near the Andromeda frontier, over 2 million light-years away. At first, they thought it was a supernova, but the pattern was wrong. It was controlled, artificial, and when they enhanced the signal, they found something impossible: human engineering. The footage showed a dying star, its core collapsing, threatening to swallow an entire system of inhabited worlds. Around it, a ring of structures, vast, delicate, humming with blue light, held the star in balance, and among them, moving with calm precision, were human ships. Not sentinels. Larger vessels marked with Earth's emblem. Engineers in pressure suits worked alongside alien survivors, stabilizing reactors, rerouting plasma flows, saving lives. The broadcast lasted only 90 seconds before the signal faded, but it was enough. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humans, once called primitive, weak, insignificant, performed a feat no council species had ever attempted. They weren't just surviving. They were preserving. Not for profit, not for glory, just because it was right. In the council chamber, Voran stood again. This time his voice was firm. You wanted proof they belonged. There it is. They do not seek your table. They build their own, and they invite no one who does not earn the chair. No one argued. Paul finally gave the order. Let the Thalorian envoy dock at Lunar Station 7. Send Lena to meet them. Tell them we'll talk, but only as equals. As the Thalorian ship glided toward the moon, Paul looked out at Earth from his window. Blue, green, fragile, and strong. They had walked away from the council not because they were broken, but because they were ready. Ready to stand on their own. Ready to be seen for who they truly were. And now the galaxy was finally looking. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began not with debate, but with silence. Delegates from 23 species sat in their usual places, but the air felt different, thinner, heavier, charged with something none of them could name. At the center of the chamber, a large hollow display glowed with the final frames of the Andromeda transmission. Human ships holding back a dying star, engineers working side by side with strangers from a world no one had ever heard of, and the quiet hum of machines doing what no one thought possible. The image had been verified by 5 independent observatories. It was real, and it changed everything. Paul Dawson's face appeared on the screen. He wasn't in a uniform. He wore a simple dark shirt, his expression calm, his eyes steady. He didn't look like a conqueror. He didn't look like a beggar. He looked like a man who had made a choice and lived with it. We didn't leave because we were insulted, he said, his voice clear and low. We left because you refused to see us as equals. You called us children, rodents, noise. You ignored our pain, mocked our efforts, and assumed we would always come back with our hands out. But we were never asking for your permission to exist. We were waiting for the day we wouldn't need it. He paused, letting the words sink in. We're not asking for a seat at your table anymore. We've built our own. The transmission ended. The screen went dark. For a full minute, no one spoke. Then the Zenthari delegate rose, his usual arrogance gone, replaced by something close to shame. What do we do now? He asked, not to anyone in particular, but to the room, to himself, to the silence. Voran, the Thalorian elder, leaned forward slowly. His voice, though soft, filled the chamber. You do what every wise species does when it realizes it was wrong. You listen, you learn, and if you are lucky, you are given a second chance. Outside the chamber, the galaxy shifted. Trade routes once closed to human vessels opened quietly. Scientific academies sent requests for data exchanges. Even the Varelian hegemony issued a formal statement. Not an apology, but a reassessment of prior engagements. It was weak, but it was a start. On Earth, life went on. Farmers planted crops. Students went to school. Factories hummed with quiet purpose. But something had changed in the way people carried themselves. They walked taller. They spoke with calm certainty. They knew now that their worth wasn't decided by distant councils or alien judgments. It was proven in what they built, how they helped, and when they chose to walk away. Lena Brooks stood on the observation deck of Lunar Station 7, watching the Thalorian envoy prepare to depart. Their meeting had lasted 3 hours. No treaties were signed, no alliances forged, but they had talked, truly talked, for the first time. The Thalorians asked about the star stabilization tech. Lena explained it wasn't just tech, it was a philosophy. "We don't fix things to control them," she said. "We fix them because broken things deserve to be whole." The Thalorian captain, a female named Ciela, had nodded slowly. "Your people think like gardeners, not warriors. Maybe that's why we last," Lena replied. Back on Mars, Paul reviewed the latest reports. Colony Theta 9 was thriving, its reactor now powered by clean fusion cells built in orbit. The Sentinels remained on standby not as weapons but as guardians. And deep in the Kuiper Belt, Relay Station Kappa had begun broadcasting open-source schematics for water purifiers, atmospheric processors, and medical drones, all free for any species to use. No strings, no passwords, just help. The galaxy didn't understand it at first. Some thought it was a trick, others called it naive. But within weeks, colonies on the fringe, places the Council had long forgotten, began sending messages of thanks. A Cathari mining outpost used the purifier designed to save their children from a toxic leak. A Xanthari research station stabilized their oxygen levels using the atmospheric code. Humanity wasn't demanding loyalty. They were offering dignity, and dignity, it turned out, was contagious. In the Council, a new motion was proposed not by the great powers, but by a small delegation from the Relian Collective, a species of plant-based beings who rarely spoke. We moved to recognize Earth as a sovereign interstellar civilization, with full rights, voice, and standing. The vote passed unanimously, not because they feared humans, but because they finally respected them. Paul received the news but didn't celebrate. He simply forwarded it to every human colony with a single line. "They see us now. Let's make sure they keep seeing us clearly." Months passed. The Sentinels still patrolled the edges, but now they were joined by curious alien ships, observing, learning, sometimes even offering help of their own. A Cathari science vessel assisted in mapping dark matter near Neptune. A Xanthari engineer shared data on plasma shielding. Slowly, quietly, a new kind of alliance formed, not built on treaties but on trust. One evening, as Paul stood on a balcony overlooking the Pacific, Lena joined him. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gold and red. "Do you think they'll ever fully understand us?" she asked. Paul smiled. "Maybe not. And that's okay. We don't need them to understand us. We just need them to know we're here, and that we choose kindness, not because we're weak, but because we're strong enough to." Above them, a Sentinel passed silently through the upper atmosphere, its black hull catching the last light of day. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a boast. It was simply a reminder. Humanity had left the peace talks not in defeat, but in declaration. And in doing so, they had taught the galaxy the hardest lesson of all, that true strength isn't measured in weapons or territory, but in the courage to walk away, and the grace to return only when you're ready.